what do we need to do when we're done?
Turn it off. I got it. I know how to do it. Later, virgin.
What did you say? Later, virgin. Okay. So, man, this feels weird. One, because the only other time I've been in here without Zach and I were the ones who were doing podcasts like crazy and started it, and he had a podcast, and then we decided to do one for Eternal Strength, but then Mike and I did one called Mike Sesh, and he interviewed me. And then my real goal, man, I've looked back at all these episodes that we did. I didn't want to be the next guy with a podcast because a lot of people have podcasts, but I think the beautiful thing that can happen here is there's a lot of youth and young adults that are hungry to tell their story, their journey, and when they get to the right place developmentally where they're like, man, I'm ready to get on and talk about what I've been through and just be honest and raw about it. So we've had the privilege of, I've had like 4 or 5 past clients come on and tell very raw, unfiltered stories about their life, what they've been through, depression, anxiety, suicidality, substance abuse, self-harm. And so it's been beautiful. But Cody, we're glad to have you today, man. What's your last name?
Davis.
Okay, so Cody Davis, but maybe you guys talk about how you connected and then how you're here, and we'll dive in from there. Shut me up. I talk too much.
I guess so. If for anyone just listening for like the first time, my name is Mike. I work here with Wes at Eternal Strength, and I'm blessed to be the person who connected these two fine gentlemen, man. Cody's a guy. I heard a video last night where Theo Vaughn was talking about it's a guy I really admire, and what that means is like when somebody's better than you, but you like them anyway. So you don't
That's
mind
pretty
it.
good.
But in all seriousness, man, this is a guy I got sober with. We had a pretty cool journey together, man, and I met Cody in the rooms of the 12-step recovery. We spent a little bit of time working on the structure for Georgia, Heroin Anonymous of Georgia, and we became pretty good buds at that point, and then have kind of parted ways for several years and have recently reconnected through a mutual friend, and then I went and toured his place of business, which is called Four Winds, and I was blown away, man. I was absolutely blown away about like not just how like not the units and everything is nice. They're very high quality, but it was the level of passion that you had for what you were doing that was it just hit me with a deep sense of pride. I was like, that's my fucking boy right there. My boy's doing things, dude. Like I don't want to, I try not to spend too much time with people that don't inspire me. And so I thought that was a really, really cool thing that you're doing over there. And if you want to give a little bit of a rundown on what exactly that is, I guess now would be the time, my friend.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Super, super grateful to be here, hanging out with you guys. Mike, I think that it's super cool how both of our journeys have kind of like taken this parallel, but on different paths. Because man, we started out just being of service to other people, right? Trying to like spread a message that at that time, neither one of us were making a career out of it, like by any sort of it was just like, hey man, I work my regular job and then I got all this because it's what I want to do. And watching what you now do, with Eternal Strength is just so cool. And being able to meet you, Wes, through that process is just so cool. I really respect what you guys are doing up here, and it's an honor to be here today.
Awesome.
But yeah, so my name is Cody Davis, and kind of do a little bit of everything. Try to put myself in a position where no matter what a person's situation is, be able to have some form of solution for them. And what that looks like is, I've worked in so many different treatment centers at so many different levels of care, but also with different demographics as well. one of the jobs that I still have right now is at a place called The Extension, which is a year-long homeless shelter for both men and women. I'm a primary counselor at the men's center. And it's a nonprofit organization, man, that just does so much good work. I think they've been around for like 34 years. So it's it's one of those things, man, where...
No worries. You're good, dude. I thought it was me, man. And the extension, the first time, I'll jump in real quick and just say the first time I heard about the extension was my mom runs an advocacy center that works with abused and neglected kids called Safe Path. And she knew about the extension, and it's over there in Marietta.
Correct.
Close to like Kennesaw Mountain.
Yep.
Kind of.
You can see it from there.
Yep. And I drive by all the time, man, and I could feel the energy from there because there would be a lot of people on that front stoop and a lot of like activity going on. But I've never heard anything negative about the extension and the work that they do and their reputation. So
yeah, man, and that was a big part of what took me there. Quite frankly, I when I left the job that I was at to go to the extension, it was a pretty big pay cut. But for me, it was about making a difference, and being a part of an organization that has been impacting the community for decades. Right, not just like, oh man, they've got great services. It's like, no, man, they are a staple in the homeless community. And so that's kind of what, and the reason that I bring that up is, not only do I love the extension and everything that we do over there, but it's really what spawned the idea for Four Winds Recovery. So, at the extension, only 30% of the beds are reserved for guys coming out of incarceration. And so, and that's great, right? But one of the things that we would constantly run into there would be a guy that's coming out of a long-term prison sentence or has been in and out of county jails for most of his adult life. There's a certain way they carry themselves, right, that can intimidate some other people, and not necessarily even because they're trying to do that. It's, what I've learned is that is just their response to them being afraid. And unfortunately what that would do, though, is if somebody else who does not have that background and is, just another homeless, or I shouldn't say just another homeless addict, but, somebody that just, again, doesn't come from that lifestyle.
Just hasn't spent time in jail.
Right,
or
exactly.
In prison and hasn't been in that environment and had to maneuver in there because you got to do certain things in that environment to
exactly
survive.
Just survive.
Yep.
And so when they get, intimidated or afraid, from an administrative standpoint, it's, well, hey man, the guy who just came from prison, he's got to go. And there was just something that, logically I understood, but it just didn't sit right here. And so, the goal was, how do we change that, right? How do we create an environment where everybody is coming out and they are of the same variety. They come from the same backgrounds. They're coming from the same place, to where when their survival skills are just coming out because that's really just their reaction to fear, I don't have to kick them out. That's something that we can work with. So that's what started Four Winds Recovery, man. And we
when did you guys open?
October 1st of 2020.
Wow.
So, yeah, man, and we started out with 10 beds and just 3 of us, just grinding day and night. I was still working full-time at the extension at that time, so it was just this constant, go, go, go sort of status. And through that process, we have now grown to 47 beds, and we have a waiting list anywhere from like a month out at a time. Huge staff, about 13 people now that work with us, garden variety of different addiction counselors to group facilitators to behavioral health technicians, just full-blown system at this point. But, some of the services that we do, it's not just, housing for guys coming out of incarceration. We really believe in the power of therapy. And I'm a clinician by trade, so that was kind of one of the underlining things. But each one of our guys, they get an individual session every week with their counselor.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's not covered.
They get
sponsored by Newport.
But so they get an individual session with their counselor once a week at least. And then they have 3 therapeutic groups every single week that they have to attend. And, we're not a 12-step based program. We're not a faith-based program. We're an all-paths of recovery program because we really believe in the concept of meeting somebody where they're at. A lot of these guys, they know how to check a box. They know, if they're like, well, if you tell me I got to go to an AA meeting, I'll go because that's what you're telling me I got to do. Otherwise, I go back to jail. But they're just not really getting a whole lot out of it. So, while we do allow for our guys to go to AA meetings or CA or any AA, we're kind of just like, hey, man, that's not for me to choose for you. If you want to choose a smart recovery, you want to choose celebrate recovery. If you just want to do a small church group, you want to do a small men's group, that's great, and we'll support that. As long as you're engaged in something outside of here. But while you're here and while you're on our property, then we're going to engage in some of those underlining issues, or we're going to try to help you engage in healing those underlining issues. So that looks like anywhere from life skills, anger management, experiential therapy we're really big on, mindfulness and meditation, process groups. And it's just amazing the response that we get, because most of our guys, they've never even had the opportunity to sit down with a counselor who's going to try to sit there and unpack what, everything that they've been through.
Yeah.
They certainly haven't been in a position where it's okay to be vulnerable. And what's really great is, a lot of people, they think when dealing with guys coming out of incarceration, like, you got to break them down to get them to a place. And that's just really not the case, man.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of take this approach where it's just like, hey, nah, man, I just really care about you, and I don't want you to go back to jail. So let's figure out a way to do that. And, like, man, people after their, like, second or third week are just totally opening up and trying, because they're just like, whoa, man, hey, I realize that you guys are actually real about what you said that, you're providing. And so, like, I can maybe put in the work. And it's just been such a beautiful experience, man.
It's awesome. Yeah. And you saw that, man, it makes me think about all the glamorization and romanticization of prison and jail culture and how we judge those individuals that have been incarcerated and what the media tells us about it. And I haven't spent much time in jail, man, but when I went, it was all this like, oh my God, it's going to be like this and it's going to be super. And then you get in there and you recognize, man, it's just fucking people and they don't want to be there. But it's sad to watch the little amount of rehabilitation that occurs inside in incarceration facilities. And so I imagine when they come out and they have this opportunity there, it's a little bit of a double take of like, this is the first time I've had somebody who actually gives a shit, and it's a continuum of care where it's not just, we want to help you with your life and we want to help you with your development and we want to put you on a track to be able to have the tools that you need to succeed, to not have to go back into the system. And I imagine that's the hardest thing.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, like the truth is one of the, in my opinion and also my experience, is that one of the most underserved populations is, trying to treat the recidivism rate when it comes to repeat offenders, because it's clearly just locking them up is not solving the problem. It's funny you said there's just such little treatment inside, and my experience is that there's really none. Even the places like RSAT or some of the drug diversion programs are. The problem is, man, because I don't really want to like trash what anybody does, but just knowing how a lot of those systems works is the people who are engaged in those programs, like the people who work in those programs, they're overworked, underpaid, and underqualified more often than not. So you don't really get these people who are like super passionate about what they do and wanting to help people. It's kind of just a job. Yeah. Or even if they are passionate about helping people, they don't know how to help that population. And so, for everybody else, it's, hey, man, I'm just kind of locked up. I mean, I know for me, my incarceration experience was not this, oh, man, let me think about my life choices and let me try to,
It's the last
let me just reflect. It was way more about like, how do I just not get caught again?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm gonna sit here with all these other dudes who, you know, I clearly have something in common with.
Yeah. Who might give you some tips on how to not get caught again. And everybody's kind of like,
yeah, we got making some new connections. And, oh man, when I get out, we can do this.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's not so much of a.
It's a networking event.
Yeah. It certainly can be. And you know, and I feel like that's why a lot of the time, man, like when somebody's coming out of an environment like that, it's so easy to slip into that, you know, because one of the things that, you know, we do not tolerate is like, hey man, you're going to be like trying to act like you're still about that life. It's not going to work here.
Yeah.
You know, we just make that very clear through a lot of our standards and expectations. And it's not even because like I'm worried about things ever getting out of hand as much as it's just like, dude, that's the first and foremost behavior that we got to break. Yeah. Because it's like, you know, there's all of this underlining trauma that is causing you to act out this way. But this like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and basically list off my rap sheet and all the things that I've done just to kind of be validated through the group's eyes. Like, nah, man, we don't do that. It gets shut down real quick.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, in my experience, when that's going on, you know, like I've been in programs where that's all anybody's doing. And what it ends up doing is just taking people out because they're like, well, man, oh, if you got this connect, and it just like starts that whole cycle in people's heads, and eventually they act out on that behavior. So yeah, you know, it's just been a really cool experience. And what I've really realized is like, man, we're really not even scratching the surface of the population. I mean, 47 beds, like, yeah, that's great. You know, I'm not trying to underplay that, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be if we're going to truly impact the community. And, you know, I'm not even just talking about this, you know, Cobb County where we are, or even the state of Georgia. It's like, hey, man, if we're going to truly change what the system looks like, we have to be able to continue to grow. We have to continue to educate, work with law enforcement, work with state legislation, and be able to try to make some real changes. Yep. Otherwise, it's just like, cool, man, we got this like neat program in Cobb County, Georgia, which that's cool, but, you know, I really think if we want to change the world that we live in, you know, these are the people that we have to start with, because one of the most beautiful things that I've gotten to watch, you know, through people I've either worked with clients, or, you know, some of my peers and colleagues, and even myself, dude, is like, dude, I was these guys. Yeah. You know, and so I know that some of them are some of the most brilliant minds, man, you know, being able to take, quite frankly, some of that skill set that they learned from back in the day and harness it into something good. Yeah. Turn it around and actually start helping people. Like, dude, these are the guys that can not only, like, you know, it's not just about us changing the system. These are the guys that the ripple effect that they can cause by turning their lives into something that is, you know, actually useful, something that is positive and of service to others. Like, dude, that's how we change the world.
Absolutely, man. Cody, and man, as you talk, I have several thoughts that go through my head, but one is, I think, man, it's a little bit, it's crazy to sit here with you, because there's a little bit of a parallel and a mirror with the timing of opening up Eternal Strength, and it's a different population, and we do some different stuff here, but it's still service work, and it's still creating a community. But everything you've been through in your growth has been very similar to Eternal Strength. We opened April 2020. We got a team of 15. It's been like, it's weird. Yeah. You could be me in a parallel universe. I don't know.
I mean, but hey, man.
Then when you start to talk about systemic change and political change and economic change and trying to make an influence on the system, I feel like I'm talking to myself in certain ways. One, I would say go easy on yourself, because no matter how much you may minimize the work that you're doing, I think it's gigantic. I think it's enormous. And I think a lot about, and you probably know this, but there was this Dr. Bruce Alexander. He wrote a book called The Globalization of Addiction, and he's the one that gets associated with Rat Park. Did you ever hear about Rat Park and stuff? Oh, yeah. And so the quick synopsis was all these studies done in the 80s on rats, and they put them in isolated cages, and they gave them morphine and cocaine, and then watch the repeated addiction, and the rats would go back and back and back and use until they killed themselves. And then all the studies were, these are horribly addictive chemical compounds, and they immediately kill you. And then there was the Vietnam War happened, and all these soldiers came back from the Vietnam War, and they had used massive amounts of heroin. They thought that the use would continue, but it didn't really continue at the amount that they thought, and they reintegrated into society and had some connections and didn't stay as addicted and didn't even do a lot of treatment, and it moved in a different direction. And so Bruce Alexander came along and created Rat Park, and he was like, well, the fucked up thing about the study is the rats are isolated, they're in boxes, and they don't have any other options. Can we create a community and a network where the rats have a ton of different experiential activities? They can run around and have sex with one another. They can have all these different engagements, food and options. And then they threw the morphine and the cocaine in the mix, and nowhere near as many rats went and used. Nowhere near as many overdoses. A few still occurred, but nowhere near as much. I think what you've done is you've created a rat park for human beings. And you've gone, look, I can't get in the prison system right now. That's a little too difficult to get in there and change the entire system. So what the fuck can I do? I can go over here and I can create and I can build a community that I know will help people. And I can have them come over here and start to shape that community. I think Four Winds is going to grow. That community that you're helping is going to grow. And I think that's the piece that's been the most optimistic for me, has been, if we can't change the system right now, what can we do with the tools and the opportunities that we have? We can build other cultural hubs and communities and sacred spaces for people to have and to grow. And so I think, man, keep doing that, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's amazing, man, for these people. And then like you said, these are powerful, these human beings. And we talked a little bit about narrative of self and belief system and how you see yourself, and to allow people to come away from all the stigma and maybe the ways that they've internalized their own hatred. And they've said, I am a criminal, I am no good, I'm all these things, to unravel that and to see that they have love and they have support and there's community and they can see themselves in a different way. That can make a massive impact. And then it's that pay it forward, man. If one person, you did it, I did it. At one point, we were all there in one capacity in terms of self-destruction, addiction, substance abuse, self-loathing, depression, anxiety. It's like you do your own work, you come out of that, and then you fucking reach out a hand and you grab one more person and you say, homie, I was there. I can't tell you how the fuck to get out, but I can tell you that there is an out and you can find a way, and I'll sit here with you and try and help you get out of it.
Well, that's really been one of the most beautiful parts about where we're at currently, is because we've now been open long enough that we either have guys who have already graduated or.
Would you mind kind of aiming not necessarily scooting forward, but the way I do it is I try to aim it towards this little side piece right here.
Like this. Yeah. Got it. And
it was kind of it was a little bit spotty there for a second. Sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you. No, we're at this stage, right, where we've been open long enough that we either have guys who are alumni or we have guys that are the senior residents who, when we get new guys in, they're the ones who are surrounding these new guys, being like, what you need, man? You got everything you need. You got food, you got toothpaste. What can I do to help you? And these are guys that, as they're looking at them, they're like, dude, you look like me, you sound like me, and you want to help me?
Yeah. And what do you want?
Yeah, exactly. What do you want in return here, bro? But that's so important, That's why it works. I mean, quite frankly, man, I my story, there were a couple of, I don't even really want to say failed attempts. It was just my inability to connect with anyone when I was trying to some brief smidges of windows where I was like, man, maybe I should do something different. One of the problems was, man, I never sat across from somebody who was like me, who I could be like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
You felt what I felt. I can actually take some direction there. You know, and I say that, and it's like, you know, there was a part of me that once I did have that experience, right, where I finally met a man who then, you know, to this day, one of my spiritual mentors, who, again, you look at him, he's just this mountain of a dude covered in head to toe in tattoos, big ass burly beard, and cussed a lot, and just like told me what time it was, and I was just like, I can relate, you know, I can at least be a little more receptive to where, you know, I did go through this period where I was like, man, unless you're another addict or, you know, you have this history, you can't help other people. And that's just not true, man. You know, I've met plenty of people who, you know, they've never struggled with substance abuse. They've never struggled with, you know, mental health issues, but they're great at what they do. And they're able to help treat people. But I definitely think that it's farther and fewer between. But especially when dealing with our guys in particular, you know, they are very just cautious, guarded, closed off more often than not, that unless you can sit eye to eye with them and like, dude, I get it. I've been there, done that. They're kind of like me because they're just not at that point. Like, you know, the only reason that I'm at where I'm at today is because of my career and just being out there in the field and meeting so many other people that I'm like, oh, you're not an addict? But you do this great work, man. This is great, you know. But that's not where they're at. It took me some years to get there.
And you make an awesome point, man. I think there's a line that says, "You don't have to go to war to know that it's hell."
Yeah.
And so, but you make a really important point where it's like, but man, if you're in the dark night of the soul and you're lost and you're looking for a light, it's got to be somebody that's got a similar lived experience and can say, I've been exactly where the fuck you've been and I have felt what you've felt. Because if you're in that darkest of space and you can't have that invitation, then you start to feel more isolated, more alone, more misunderstood. But I think as you grow and you heal, you open yourself up to other healers. At least that's what it felt like for me. So I had that similar experience where it's like, I need a homie. I need somebody I can look to that goes, man, I've been through what you've been through. I've had the same exact addiction. I've messed with meth and it did this for me. Then it was like an immediate mirror. Okay, you've had very similar experiences to me. You grew up somewhere similar. You have similar emotions and different stuff. But then as you grow in your own holistic journey, at least in mine, psycho-spiritually, I want to meet other people. And everybody becomes a healer. And now I'm not concerned, you know, at 39 years old to only learn from addicts or people who have had similar experiences. I want to learn from wise sages who have had many different experiences, and they could be drastically different from me in culture, in belief system, in anything, and they could still teach me so much. And you start to see these other people as healing modalities. But initially, man, you absolutely need somebody that mirrors it.
And
I know, like, one thing that you kind of touched on a little bit that really does mirror what we're doing here is my experience when I was coming in. For me, it was in the rooms of AA, but it was my period of getting wise, man, figuring who I was out. The last thing I wanted to do is listen to somebody telling me what to do. And through a process like sponsorship, the way it was, because that's my journey. My journey was an AA. I'm a purist. I did the 12 steps. I'm redoing them right now.
You mean you got to do more than once? What?
Yeah. Sometimes
what kind of shit is that?
Growth is a motherfucker. That's the thing about spiritual growth, dude. You don't quit at 25. But like, shit, I started at 25. But it became so much more of a feel of like, this guy's my friend, and this guy's walking beside me, not in front of me. And it wasn't so much as an authority figure as it was one of my peers. And I've come to find, working in the trenches here, that the kids are the same way. They're the exact same way. They don't want to hear that shit. They don't want to hear rules, regulations. They want to hear experience. That if you want to reach a person, on the level of like their consciousness. I mean, it's got to come from experience, and it's got to come from a place of compassion and empathy, because somebody's got to give a fuck. I remember coming into the rooms and everybody was so different. And you know how an AA meeting can be. It's just like a lawyer here, a junkie over there, a doctor over here. And for me, man, it was just, I was looking at these fucking people. First off, I was convinced nobody had a bigger bag of rocks than I did, you know? And instead of measuring who had the bigger bag of rocks, dude, I forgot to put the fucking bag down. And I carried it with me. And it held me back. And it made getting sober difficult. But once, like, I know this is going to sound like a cliche to anybody who's been in the rooms, but I had to stop looking at people for why they were different than me. And start finding some commonality with these people. And once I did that, dude, that little keyhole of perspective I had fucking widened up, and life got easy, man. It got a lot easier.